Rebels continue pushing forward, looking to see if they can find some kind of purchase. Now, they found one right here, where they've got, I don't know what kind of odds, 3-1 maybe? 11-21, there's another 5 under there, to 7, so 3-1 odds. I'll be taking care of that in a moment. But places like this are pretty much unattackable, even though this is sticking out. It's 16 strength points, doubled is 32. I have 3 hexes I can attack it from. Basically, my biggest units are 10s. To get a 2-1, I'd need 64 points. That's, I don't have it, right? I can get 60 if all my 10s were there, I think. I don't know, but positioning wasn't good enough. Likewise, here, this is a little weaker, and especially once this falls, at 10 points. Conceivably, I could have put a 20-point unit here. I can't get in here because of the rigid zones. But I didn't have a 20-point unit to throw in there. I'm positioning 20 points into location. But this is going to fade back because as this falls, that becomes an issue. Likewise, then the river line here, that's just too rough to get through. But there was a weak spot, and let's take a look at what we get. It's a 3-1 attack. It's a defender retreat, which is... Now at this point, the question is, do I want to advance? Because by advancing, I force an attack by the Union. And I think an advance here does me some good. We'll see how the Union reacts to that. Because at the very least, this unit has to attack. And now, by forcing a counterattack, I may make them dislodge from this position back here, or weaken something along here. They've got to pull in forces, or else they've got to give this up and just take what amounts to is it 1-2 or 1-3? 11 strength points. It's just a 1-2, where there's a pretty good chance they could just get out of there, one way or the other, either with the defender retreats or the attacker retreat. And the Union was able to throw in enough some extra strength from up here in order to get to a 1-1. They ended up with a defender retreat from that. There's no more attacker eliminates once you hit the 1-1 table. So they kind of saved themselves a lot of risk. And now we move into turn 7 here. The game of maneuver continues with the Confederates beginning to slice further and further down. And one reason for that is, starting next turn, I think it is, points are granted for these bridges actually occupying them. So I need to put pressure there. More than that, the supply wagon. It comes in here and has to come out here. That's not a very difficult track if I'm not putting pressure down on the Union there as well. So the idea of actually engaging the Union as opposed to just trying to maneuver around them seems silly, especially when I've collected some decent points already for casualties from the early stages of the battle. And the Union, of course, reacts by pushing their own flank down. They're still holding some position up here where they had the heart of their defenses, but mainly that's just sort of an anchoring to the river. Make sure that the Confederates don't gain lots of ground down there. They're focusing more on the defense through the wilderness areas here. There was an opportunity to make a 2-1 attack here, but 2-1 doesn't do me much good. Yeah, I could force the defender to retreat, but I don't want to really extend that far out. This was a nice hex, this would not be. So why make the attack? Because I could get an attacker retreat and then I would lose some of my operational flexibility in terms of, units that are ineffective at this point. And that ends turn 7. At the end of turn 8, if we're in location, here and here, these two bridges, they're worth a point each. And we got a couple of units that are actually heading down to go garrison those. Stretching downward continues as the Confederates push southward, but they also are putting an attack into the center here. Now those are both, I think, 2-to-1 attacks. Let's see what we got here. I can see only 10 strength points there. This may be 3-to-1, 3-to-1 there. This is going to be a 2-to-1 with 15, 25, 32 to only 13. Yes, I have an overage of numbers, and that could be a problem if I get a retreat. My view, though, is that the attack was better made than not, because I can cut through and maybe kind of isolate these units, get some more kill bag points. It looks like it's going to be tough for me to reach down here. I'm trying to put pressure, but the Union can just keep sliding further and further down. Eventually they're going to be forced to fight. Once they get down in that area, they're going to have to fight, but they end up being dragged into one here too. Let's do these suckers. 3-to-1 over there. I don't usually roll attacks, but in a game like this, there's not much harm to it. So I get a defender retreat. I think they're going to push this way. Remember, the terrain doesn't do me much good, and the Confederates are going to push this way. This keeps their line more stable, and the advance forces the Union to continue an attack next turn, on their turn, which is something of an advantage. Here, though, it's only a 2-to-1. More likely for there to be a problem on that. And there is. We got an attack or retreat, which kind of reduces the amount of damage that the Confederate attack here can do, because I gotta wait till nightfall to continue using these units in an attack value. Now, I could shift them up to take positions up here where I don't believe I can get an attack unless the Union weakens their position. Or maybe over here where it looks like the Union's a little stronger. It looks like I've got some push through going through here, so the Union's going to have to, deform their line a little bit more into a different position. Whatever that means. I mean, in some ways, this forward defense is probably pointless, because until this bridge, I can't even cross. Well, I can here, but I mean, if I want to cross the Chickahominy, I can do that in other places. Although it would mean retreating back to here at this point. I'm not sure there's too much value for the Confederates to do so, but maybe they do want to cross it now where they didn't before. Anyway, I got to mark these suckers with their strength points on their disrupted side. Union gives up this forward position, pulling back across the river. However, they are launching a 3-to-1 attack on this and trying to cover this, but there's a big gap right here. Now, that's a gap that requires marching through the woods to some extent, but not much. 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, actually 6. There could be an attack on there. I would like to cover that better, but I can't really manage it and still keep some defense here. You know what I could do? I can do that. It ain't pleasant, but it helps. Let's see that. That helps plug the gap a little better, because that was just too ugly. Also, the points don't get allocated until after turn 8. The end of turns after turn 8. So the Union's not going to get 1 point this turn, but they will get 2 next turn, assuming nothing exciting happens. Let's do that 3-to-1 up there. It's a defender retreat. That's going to force a displacement. And the Confederate line is facing a stronger position here. Not a lot of ability to really get around these flanks over here. The river is providing quite a bit of terrain advantage towards any kind of attack there. The only way would be to double back and swing up. So I want to keep pushing this way. Might need to leave a small garrison here to keep these guys in check. But I don't see a real reason to leave the quantity of Confederate troops that are up there right now along the river line. Okay, so the Confederates going to fill in some of that space, and they're using their ineffective units for this as well. And then they concentrate heavily on a number of attacks here. This is only a 2-to-1, but I think these guys are both 3-to-1s at least. I'll come back after I resign. Actually, both of these were 2-to-1s. This was a 3-to-1, and it ended up in a bad exchange where the Confederates lost 15 strength points to 11 Union points. Those 10-point units, not quite big enough, and then the next combination was significantly larger than the Union commitment to the battle. But it is forcing several attacks along here, which may result in ineffective Union units, not that big a deal, or possibly an attack over here, an effective attack, because over here, this guy's kind of out there. I don't know if I can get enough strength. I only got 12 strength points there. I can't even get a 1-to-1. And clogging up the roads and kind of preventing the Union from being able to move cleanly. This is the first turn where the victory points are going to be assessed, though, and we're pretty much in position to get them. Union kind of positioning themselves. None of these attacks are very good, the ones they were forced into. I think they got a 1-to-1 on one of them. This one, 14-to-10. But up here, they're managing a 6-to-1, going for a cheap kill. Now, this kind of weakens their position, giving up this bridge line and everything. I don't know how wise it is, but I think I can escape from the position and get some cheap points that way. That didn't turn out terribly well. A retreat here, nothing much I could do about that. I mean, I could have thrown more units in and got more units ineffective. Same over here, although I could have gotten a 1-to-1 there. I didn't get an elimination, which is good. Over here, that 6-to-1 table didn't do me any good. I rolled high enough to get a retreat. That just pushes the Confederates back. And I've still got a couple of heavy forces here in place that I don't have an easy way to get out of there. I could probably pull half the force and try to hold it with half that force at the two bridges, or I could pull half the force out of there completely and leave a unit just at one bridge, figuring the Confederates don't have enough strength to really punch their way through, and they don't really have the desire to do so, because that would speed up the reinforcements a little. The more time I have to get at that train, given that I didn't cross it early, the more time I have to get down to this area with these units, the better it is. Letting a bunch of Union units on to interfere with that, that's going to just cause trouble. But it looks like it's going to be real tough to make it down here in time to kind of interfere with that. I'm trying to push as hard as I can, but it's not working. The ineffective units kind of help, though. At least that reduces the ability, if I launch an attack against these units, for these to come to their aid or something like that. I just use a piece of paper to score it, but I'm using this die up here to score the Union points that they get for holding the two bridges this turn. And the Confederates are attacking along a broad front all the way down here. That's a 3-to-1 attack. I didn't want to attack across the stream because, well, actually with the bridge it would have been okay. But anyway, over here a heavy attack on this unit. Another one here. I've abandoned that northern area. That doesn't matter. My line of communication has to go to here, not anywhere up, well, to the northwest. So this is heading back towards Richmond, I guess. And that's really where I have to worry. So I've got two things to do. One is to try to intercept and break the line here, and I get lots of victory points if I can withdraw units from this hex. The Union gets points for withdrawing that way too, but they can't make the trade-off. They can't pull all their units off the board. They have to stop the Confederates from being in a position to come off the board. So they have to have some defensive line back here. And they're having a lot of trouble moving into place. I may have to just withdraw back and defend what's important, giving up this area up here. Although, you know, if I could launch an attack against the trailing units of the Confederacy, that would be great. But I don't think I'm going to get that opportunity. Not as long as they've got this rear guard here. Confederate attacks were all very successful. Destructions here and here, and a retreat down here where we've bulged forward. That line's looking pretty ugly for the Union to try to hold. This reminds me of when I played Lee versus Grant versus an opponent who was cleverer than I was. As Lee, I ended up getting cut off from my retreat positions, and here I'm kind of seeing the Union getting that situation where the Confederates are advancing and kind of slamming me against the river here, pinning a couple of units into the attack. This guy was here. He could have withdrawn this way, but I've got to provide some support to try to get this guy out of here. He's going to get shoved up against the river, though. That's going to be really ugly. I don't know, you know, if it's a matter of, geez, maybe I shouldn't have this guy here. Maybe I should just count on. But at least by putting him here, I can't surround, the Confederates can't surround him there. This guy, he's got an easier route out. I'm beginning to pull units out of here to bring them in to reinforce. But it's looking pretty damn bad for the Union. Advance, well, these guys were forced to retreat. Now they're partially ineffective. I've split them up. That weakens my defensive position or strength, but it improves my chances of pulling back. Now with these guys, I have an advance opportunity. I pushed the Confederates forward. If I take that again, it spreads out my line a little bit, so I have a little bit more room to retreat to. But I just don't know. I don't think the Confederates can afford to make these attacks, and putting a unit here is pretty much consigning it to destruction. I think that 14 strength points can hold the line with these guys to back them up. We'll see. But that's just my guesstimate. Anyway, Union is holding its two important hexes for another turn, so we'll give it 2 more points and push forward. We're going to see the supply train coming in. There's enough leeway here that I think I can get it out. And I don't know. The Confederates may push pretty hard to get down into this region. Well, what do we got here? The rebels have managed to slip a unit down this far, keeping some connection here. This is a potential weakness, but there's no Union forces that can really take advantage of it. Everything that's down here is either, well, this is far away, but it's artillery cav. There's an ineffective unit here, so there's not a lot of real threat against these guys. And by placing this unit here, I'm forcing the train to be very afraid. I can't bring that in if it's just going to get captured. So I've got to get Union forces into play down here. Now, of course, the Union's gathering some victory points. If they do end up forming a cordon that they can cut through, that's great. But this is really a serious threat. Then a body blow here, and against this weak artillery here that was stupidly holding the line, but there was nothing else to go into place because of the demands on the Union forces. And then finally, I've got a couple of attacks up here against these guys who I think I can pin against the river. I may be able to wipe out much of the Union force on this side of this Chickahominy, and there's not all that much on the other side. So by maintaining this threat, I think we've got kind of a nice position developing for the Confederates here. Let's roll some of those attacks and see what happens. Indeed, the noose is tightening. Quick destruction of the artillery that was here. No real reason to advance. I'm providing some nice barrier against these guys. They don't really have a way out right now. Over here, I did advance. However, that was kind of an iffy choice because these guys are just going to have to withdraw anyway. They're not going to be forced to attack. It's kind of strange that you can't withdraw from combat, maybe by becoming ineffective. I would think that would be a reasonable option, but I don't know. Over here, This unit drove back the Confederate attack. That was just a 2-to-1 attack, but over here was a 3-to-1, and we've moved into position, forcing these guys to further withdraw. Now, they have a route open to them, and so kind of do these folks. So I'm going to be able to withdraw off of here, but that means the Confederates pretty much just need another garrison unit here, just as they have one here, and the Union has one there, to prevent any kind of weird exploit from going on. And then they can continue their push eastward. It's time for the Union, and I'm pretty sure they're going to withhold bringing that train in. No reason to get it captured. Remember, though, they get a penalty if they don't bring it in all game. Union's not forced to make any attacks, so I'm going to pull back. We've got the big artillery here to help. Oh, that's no good. Let's stay like this. I forgot that thing's only got a 1 defense. Yeah, we can't do that. Unfortunately, my line up here is in a lot of danger, but I do get 2 more victory points for the turn. And push the turn marker forward, keeping the train under there. Still got this blockade, but I'm starting to withdraw units across the river kind of carefully here. These guys heading down. I don't have enough for a counterattack anywhere near there yet. I don't have enough to defend this even. So it's a worse situation than the Union historically faced at this point. Okay, but the Confederates basically having gained their objective down here, they're going to be cleaning up a couple of Union units back there. Moved in. They just have to attack this because this is across the Chickahominy. Over here, big odds here. Then they're heading back up in this general direction to launch an attack maybe on this unit. Now the problem is next turn's a night turn. They won't be able to attack next turn, and a bunch of Union reinforcements come in over here, chased by the Confederates eventually. This is the withdrawal from Richmond scenario. By holding off going across the Chickahominy, it means those reinforcements have been delayed a long time, and I've been able to gain control of basically the north bank of it. Mostly. I feel free to move these ineffective units into, well, not so much there, but up here into key locations because I know they will very shortly be available for moving. I've taken most of the crossing points of the river. Or at least, if I haven't actually taken them, I'm close to them. And I should be getting this one this turn. This bridge hex is also the other victory point hex, so I can trim into the Union victory point advantage, which is sitting up there at 6, I hope. The end result, a mixture. Over here, I forced a retreat, I believe. Or was this a destruction? Damned if I can remember. This may have been a destruction, moving forward, and threatening. Yeah, it had to be threatening these units, which are going to have to withdraw, giving me that side of the bank. Over here, chased him across the bank. Over here, though, we had a mutual elimination. Not here. Here, the Confederates won the battle. But over here, mutual elimination, which means I'm not getting the point for that bridge. The Union probably cannot clear me out of this bridge, just because they don't have a lot of force here. They have this 8-point unit, but that was forced back. And the Union doesn't have any attacks. They had those automatic withdrawals, giving up this space, giving up the river up here, keeping some supplies here, or some reinforcements in place there, and moving down this way to try to push their way across the, what is that, Bottoms Bridge. That great name. As we move forward, at the end of the turn, the Confederates get 1 victory point, taking that away from the Union for holding this bridge. They don't have this one yet. Okay, now the Confederates mainly are consolidating their positions and also grabbing those bridges and putting themselves in positions where they challenge or are near the other bridges. So, for example, if these guys withdraw, now they've got a flood coming through, but maybe they've got a flood attacking next morning anyhow. Here it's a little tougher. I don't have this opening here. Moving the extra unit from here really kind of gave this up. We'll see if the Union gets enough forces to be able to reinforce that at all. and block some of those, but my biggest goal has to be opening things up here, and that's going to be real tough. It's really hard to fight your way across a bridge. How do I do it? It may involve going around the Chickahominy and trying to fight my way back down eastward the same way that the Confederates had to. This was a big mistake, losing this ground here. And it all dawns back to the first turns, staying up here a little too long, I think. The Union forces that come onto the map this night are kind of weird. They're coming from here, and they're not coming from off map, they're just starting stacked here. My assumption is they're coming out of there. I have to worry a little bit because the Confederate reinforcements do come out of 0117 at some point. Down here on turn 15, and that's the next set of reinforcements we're looking at. There's some value to holding this heavily defensive terrain, but if I do, I've got to kind of hold this maybe too. So I've got to think about, do I want to try to stem them here? Remember, if I can maintain a line of communications from here to here, I get some advantages. At least if I end up exiting from that direction. But I've got to prevent the Confederates from exiting anything from here, and that's the biggest goal. So clogging this is really important. Controlling this side of the Chickahominy. But I really need to get my supply wagon in. Now here at the end of day 2, we'll load up after this. Some light defenses along here to gain me some time. Pushing forward to position, not really to attack here, but to defend against them as I swing units around. I'll be able to maybe do a coordinated attack, dislodge the Confederates from that position and try to race down. I don't have a lot of time though, and that's the problem. I've got to clear this. How am I going to do that? I don't have the forces to force these rivers. Oops, I can't be there. I don't have the force to force the river line at this point, and where I've got the edge, I could pump a couple of units through, but they're outnumbered in each case. I don't see any way around it except with this this flanking force. It looks to me like I've lost the train, which is 5 point. No, I think it's 5 points. Now, 20 points if I don't bring the train in. However, if it's captured, it's only worth like 5 or something, right? So the Confederates can't get their 2 points because the train hasn't exited from this map. 2 points per strength point, which is the most dangerous thing. Oh no, they get it if they eliminate the train. Yeah. So if the train doesn't come on, it's a 20-point bonus. If I let them eliminate the train, the Confederates get a bonus for forcing their way back here. They don't seem to actually get any points for the train itself, which maybe abandoning it is the best I can do at this point. Otherwise, I get points for what? For exiting the map, if there's a line of communication, exiting it down this way. That's on a per unit basis, and I get it on a per strength point basis if I can get them out of here. So the Confederates will kind of they'll be trying not to lose control of this hex. They're going to have a hard time forcing the river either. It looked like maybe they'd be able to do it here, but with this coming around, with the reinforcements coming up, I'm not so sure that they can. But it should be an interesting kind of fight. We'll send this one up, and another one for the last day. I think doing one per day makes sense.